Candy, the Harriet Entanglement doctor. Candy Tran was halfway through her lecture on subterranean resistance cultures of the 19th century when the emergency chrono summons lit up her ocular HUD. The message blinked red. Temporal integrity compromised. Unauthorized jump detected. Eastern Seaboard, 1859. Candy, came the voice of Commander Rennie Kita in her neural relay. We lost contact with Agent Dixon. His last beacon places him in Maryland, October 1859. Preliminary scans indicate tampering with historical vectors tied to the Underground Railroad. Candy blinked twice, activating her private response channel. You think he's gone rogue? We're not sure, but something's wrong. We need a specialist in mid-19th century resistance structures. Candy's heart rate spiked. You're pulling me in. Prep jump. 10 minutes. She turned back to her stunned classroom, their notes mid-scroll in the air, eyes wide with curiosity and dread. Midterm rescheduled, Candy said simply. History's calling. Jumping into the past always tasted like copper and regret. Candy materialized in a thick copse outside Bucktown, Maryland, adjusting the weave of her 19th century clothes. The nanofabric responded well, her dress aged by design, her boots worn just enough to pass, and her face subtly altered to match the era's visual records of African-descended women in the region. Her temporal anchor, a ring embedded in her left palm, pulsed faintly. She scanned the darkness. The original operative, Dixon, had vanished along this path, part of a chain moving fugitives north. Without him, the link might collapse. Suddenly, the air changed. A subtle displacement, like time folding over itself, rippled through the trees. Then she saw her, a short, muscular woman in a worn coat and wide-brimmed hat. Harriet Tubman. Who sent you? Harriet said without turning. You stepped too quiet to be local. Candy stepped forward carefully. My name is Candy. I'm here to help. Harriet's eyes narrowed. From the future? Candy's breath caught. You know. Tubman raised something in her hand, an old brass compass, its needle spinning wildly. I've met you before. They walked under the moonlight, Harriet guiding them through secret paths with her compass. This isn't just for finding north, Harriet said, glancing at the ancient device. It finds the safe path, through fields, forests, and time. Candy studied it. Temporal energy signature, yes, but old, pre-regulation, possibly even pre-sundering. Where did you get that? A man named Ezekiel, Harriet replied. He called it an anchor. Said it would help me save more than lives. Said it would help me save time itself. They reached a safe house, one of the rare two-story cabins built to house travelers in transit. Inside were 4 fugitives and a young black woman with a scar on her cheek tending to them. Harriet nodded to her. This is Mabel. She's steady. Candy waited until the fugitives had food and blankets. Then she said quietly, You've done this before? Not just here. You've jumped. Harriet nodded. Once to 1863, once to 1881. Both times to leave something behind, or to pick something up. Why? To make sure we win. Candy's scans were clear for 3 days. They helped 3 more people escape Maryland, and Harriet began to trust her. More than trust her, she confided. I'm supposed to go with John Brown, Harriet said one night, her voice low, to Harper's Ferry, but I had a vision. You were there. Only you. I never made it. Candy's blood chilled. That event was a temporal hinge. John Brown's raid, though a failure, ignited sparks that led to the Civil War. Harriet's involvement or absence could tip everything. Do you have the vision often? Only when the compass stopped spinning. Candy checked the timeline again. The fracture was growing. Like a burn in parchment, it was eating its way toward the event. The Underground Railroad's network was already showing degradation. Names vanishing from history, safe houses dissolving from record. Dixon must have interfered, and yet the temporal authority wasn't after him. They were after her. She spotted the shimmer first, just outside the safe house. A slight flicker in the air, the unmistakable signature of federal time agents. They're here, Candy whispered. Harriet's eyes blazed. Then we run again. They moved north, not just geographically, but chronologically. Harriet adjusted the compass. The needle spun, and then locked. The trees shifted. Colors deepened. Time warped. "Where are we?" Candy asked. "Same path. Different when," Harriet said. "We're in 1861. Candy felt her ring vibrate violently. The authority was close, but not close enough. She activated her chronologue, an encrypted log built into her neural implant, and sent a pulse. Still in play. Tubman aware. Compass active. The fugitives with them had changed. Now a mother with twins, a boy of 15, and an elderly preacher. New lives, new stakes. That night, Candy dreamed. She was in a fire. John Brown's raid was underway, but in the dream he was holding the compass. Tubman wasn't there. Instead, a version of her stood at Brown's side. Hair longer, face marked with the years of fighting through time. She woke gasping. Harriet was already awake. "You told me once," Harriet said, "that only one of us could stay." Candy froze. "What else did I say?" Harriet's eyes were distant. "That I'd have to choose." They were ambushed in Pennsylvania. The safe house had already been breached. A false lantern signal in the upper window. Federal agents emerged in temporal armor, weapons shaped like tuning forks and crystal spikes. Their leader, a tall black woman with the gold insignia of a prime anchor, stepped forward. "Candy Tran," she said, "you are in violation of Temporal Regulation 11A. Stand down." Harriet stepped in front of Candy. "She's with me." "She is a distortion," the agent snapped, "and her continued existence has fractured the Harper's Ferry vector." "Step aside," Miss Tubman. Candy raised her hands. "You're not here for Dixon?" "He's already been excised." Candy blinked. "Excised?" That meant erased. No memory, no footprint. "You are the anomaly now. You should never have returned." Candy looked at Harriet, then at the compass, glowing faintly in her hands. "No," Candy said. "You're wrong." And she ran. They moved through hidden paths again, this time along chronal seams only Harriet could read with the compass. Every jump left Candy disoriented, fragmented. Her memories felt brittle, like time itself was rejecting her presence. She began to see echoes, flickers of herself in windows, reflections that moved out of sync. At one point, she reached for her anchor ring, only to find it cracked. Hairline fractures. Her connection to her origin year, 2029, was fading. "You can't stay," Harriet said gently. "You know that." Candy looked at her. "I thought maybe we could finish this together." Harriet smiled, sad and sure. "We will, just not both of us." They arrived on the eve of the raid. Candy scanned the area. John Brown's men prepping weapons, maps scattered across tables. But history was wrong. Harriet was never here, officially, yet here she was, watching from the trees. "The compass brought us here," Candy said. Harriet nodded. One last knot to untangle. Inside the house, they found a second compass. Older, cracked. A memory surged in Candy's mind. She had come here once before. Not now Candy, future Candy, the one with the scar. She'd warned Harriet, told her the fracture would consume them both unless a choice was made. Only one compass could remain. Only one traveler could survive the knot. The authority descended as dawn broke. Candy and Harriet stood inside the burning embers of the armory. Time was breaking, layers of the past bleeding into each other. Fugitives vanished mid-step. Brown himself flickered in and out. "You have to go," Harriet said. "I can't. Not without you. You already did." And then Candy understood. The dream, the vision, the other Candy, the one in the fire, was her. This was the moment of split. She held the cracked compass. Harriet held the whole one. "You go forward," Harriet said. "I'll stay. I'm anchored here." "I don't want to forget you." "You won't, because you're the one who came back." Candy stepped into the fire. Not literal flames, but a fracture, a ribbon of time ripping through the world. She stepped into it with the cracked compass in hand. The image of Harriet burned into her memory. She emerged in 2029, but not the one she left. Everything had shifted. The Underground Railroad was not just remembered, it was revered. Harriet Tubman was spoken of in schools not just as a hero, but as something more, a temporal guardian, a chrononaut. And in Candy's hand, The compass glowed one final time, then dimmed. She turned on her neural recorder. Entry 0001. Temporal Anthropologist Candy Tran reporting. The Harriet Entanglement was real, and I remember everything. The world she returned to wasn't just altered, it was matured. Candy stepped into a museum dedicated not just to abolitionist history, but to temporal resistance itself. A young guide walked by explaining to school children how Harriet Tubman had navigated the bends of time like she did the woods of Maryland. There was a statue, brass, lifelike, and radiant, depicting Tubman with her compass in one hand and a cloak billowing as if caught between centuries. Candy stood before it in silence. The fractured compass was tucked into her pocket now, inert. Its once chaotic hum had gone quiet the moment she stepped back into the realigned present. The ring in her palm no longer pulsed. She wasn't tethered to any anchor now. She was here, and yet the silence unnerved her. Her access to the temporal authority was gone. Clearance revoked, system sealed. In the authorities' eyes, she never returned. Her own login credentials responded with agent not recognized, but she knew who she was. More importantly, she knew who Harriet had been. Candy exited the museum and stepped into a world subtly different from the one she'd left. The skyline bore the familiar shape of Atlanta, but temporal towers blinked new colors and sky trams followed new routes. Subtle shifts. Reality had healed around the entanglement, smoothing away some scars, but not all. She spotted a mural painted under an overpass, Tubman with outstretched hands guiding streams of light through what looked unmistakably like folds in spacetime. She began collecting articles, recordings, oral histories that now openly referenced Harriet's visions. Fringe podcasts speculated on her compass. University lectures touched on pre-authority time disturbances and included coded references to the Tubman loops. Short bursts of missing time documented in Civil War letters. Candy found no trace of Agent Dixon, just as the authority had said, excised. But she didn't believe he'd simply turned rogue. Something else had pulled him in. And it wasn't over. One night, while reviewing Harriet's original writings in a secure archive, Candy found a page she'd never seen before. It wasn't scanned into any known database. The handwriting matched Harriet's, but the language was off. I saw her again, a woman wearing my grief like a coat. She said the war would end, but time would not, that I'd have to trade the chain for a loop. Below the words was a faint sketch, a compass split in two, and a second figure. Candy recognized her silhouette instantly. The scar, the longer hair, the one who had warned Harriet decades earlier. Candy stared, breath caught in her throat. That version of herself, she hadn't become her. Not yet, but it was her path. Time, she realized, was never a straight line. For people like them, it folded back, re-looped, layered. And in some version of this looping, she must go back again. The fractured compass vibrated, only once. The authority hadn't destroyed her timeline. They'd merely pressed pause. If she could no longer go through them, she would go around them. She returned to the museum, not as a visitor this time, but as a researcher. She feigned ignorance, pretended to be an enthusiast of the period, asking about artifacts and primary sources. In the hidden collections, she found it, a second compass locked behind a glass case tagged simply as anomalous navigational device, Tubman. It was intact, uncracked. Candy broke in that night, not to steal, to activate. She brought both compasses into sync, hers and Tubman's, fractured and whole. The moment they touched, a spark of memory hit her like lightning. She was there, not in the museum, but in another timeline entirely. The moment unfolded without her control. John Brown stood in a circle of men, maps spread before them, tension ripe in the air. Harriet stood at the edge, holding the compass tightly, eyes darting like she was listening to something beneath the sound. And then, there she was, Candy, scarred, older, stepping into the room, and all the men went silent. "We don't have long," older Candy said. "They've found the knot. You can't be here, Harriet. Not tonight." Harriet stared. You told me we'd lose if I stayed away. We'll lose either way, said older Candy. But we'll lose everything if the loop collapses. One of us has to go forward. One of us has to disappear. Candy felt herself pulled out of the memory, ripped violently back into the museum. She collapsed to her knees, gasping. The two compasses had burned her hands, twin circles scorched into her palms. But her fractured compass now pulsed again, no longer inert. She knew what it meant. A new fracture was forming, and it wasn't in the past. Candy found a name repeated in old authority records, Agent Mara Ellis, the one who'd led the team trying to retrieve her, who called her a distortion. Digging deeper, Candy uncovered a private terminal location in Seattle, an off-grid authority node, likely decommissioned after the Tubman incident. She booked a shuttle under a pseudonym and brought the compasses with her. The terminal was hidden under an old bookstore. She bypassed the biometric scan with a neural override chip she designed back in her field days. When she accessed the central logs, something blinked across the screen. Recursion detected. Initiate. Harriet event. Mara Ellis had filed a private directive, not for Candy's erasure, but for her preservation. Hidden under layers of encryption was a message. Candy, if you're reading this, the loop is not closed. Your future self triggered a recursive protection protocol. The compass was never meant to guide through space. It was to guide you back, to yourself. Harriet was the first to understand it. In 2091, on the bicentennial of Harriet Tubman's birth, a new exhibit opened in New York's Central Archive. The title, The Entanglement Corridor. At its center stood the original compass, cracked now, burned, but humming faintly. Visitors filed past a new plaque, in memory of the unknown conductor who sealed the loop so others could walk free. People speculated who she was. A traveler? A shadow of Harriet's own visions? A lost agent of time? No one knew for sure. But those who studied the loop, those who looked close enough, sometimes dreamed of her. A woman with firelight in her eyes, a compass in her palm, and a voice like folded time. One final memory. Candy Tran stands in a garden of folded reality. Time here does not move like ours. It breathes. She tends to it gently, weaving forgotten names into the wind. Mabel, Ezekiel, Dixon, Brown, and Harriet. She waits at the edge of the loop, not lost, not erased, just between. And when someone somewhere asks the right question, when a child stares too long at the stars and whispers, "Who showed them the way?" the compass turns and the corridor opens.